Hi, everyone, and welcome to Complete and Cast, the official podcast of Complete and Box Video Games. I'm Spenser, and this is episode 13. I must admit that I was not planning on doing an episode this week, what with it being the holiday season and all. However, certain things in the video game world, certain events have led me to go about and do this. Now, if you look back on the history of Complete and Cast, this isn't too far in the past. We had episode 10, which was me ranting about Nintendo, New Age Nintendo, and the things that they do that I don't like. Now, I decided to make this episode simply because, I guess it's kind of a gloating of like, hey, I told you, not necessarily that you guys disagree with me, but I guess for myself, I told you so self. A lot of the stuff that I was harping on and that I guessed would happen this holiday season. Currently, we're sitting at the end of November. We're after Black Friday. We have about a month to go till Christmas. The episode that I talked about before was made in early September, so go soothsayer me. I've been around this long enough to kind of, I guess, know, or at least have an inkling. So, what Nintendo problems are we talking about? Now, a lot of stuff has happened for Nintendo over the last couple months. Let's start with the good, and it's unfortunately a lot shorter than the bad. The good is Pokemon Sun and Moon came out. People like them quite a bit in general. You always hear complaints about every game that comes out, but in general, people are liking them. They're selling well, and most importantly for us, they were readily available, and we were able to get as many copies as we needed, which honestly I was not guessing would happen. I'm very, very happy about that. Nintendo of America did a really good job of making sure there was enough copies of, by the way, the most pre-ordered game or the most pre-bought game in history of their history, of just Nintendo games, just to make that clear. So that was good. Now, let's quickly switch over to the negative side of what's happened over the past couple of weeks or months. Let's start with the simple fact that nobody has anything when it comes to hardware for Nintendo stuff. For instance, let's start with, this just came out a couple weeks ago, the Mini-NES. Now, I'm certain, without even going back and listening to the podcast of episode 10, that I talked about it, or at least I mentioned it. It ended up being an absolute disaster by Nintendo's part. Nobody had it. We actually were told that we were getting it the whole way through. We were told in about, July, June, sometime in the summertime. I put a pre-order of a lot in. I was planning on getting a lot because I knew they would be big. And we were told throughout the whole process that we would be getting them, that it wouldn't be a problem, that they were getting them, they would be allocated that. Now, I will say, for all this stuff I'm talking about, I don't blame any of my distributors for this. About a week or two before they came out, we were suddenly told that they were not being sent through distribution. Once again, distribution is, if you're not a big enough player, a Best Buy or a GameStop or a Walmart, to buy enough for Nintendo to give you the time of day, straight away, you buy through distribution. Distribution buys for the rest of us. They buy, large quantities, so smaller stores like us can, get through them. And we were told that they were not going through distribution at all, which meant that not only were I not getting the several hundred I wanted, we were getting absolutely none. Now, I am glad that I told customers that that was a very good possibility, and we did not take pre-orders, because that would have been a nightmare. But even more so, huge stores. Now, I'm sure if you're listening to this, you like Complete in Box at least enough to listen to it. But, we're not a huge name in the video game world. We order a bunch of stuff, but in the grand scheme of things, like a Toys R Us or GameStop, they have like 8,000 stores. We have one. We'll most likely only ever have one, so I can have time to do fun stuff like this. So I was being told by customers that Toys R Us stores and GameStops were getting like 5 for, big mall GameStop stores. I don't even have to go into how that is just unacceptable. It's just, how could you possibly allocate it that each GameStop store gets 4 or 5? Why even bother? Honestly, at that point, why even bother? And I ask that. I understand that they'll make a little bit of money doing that. Nintendo would make a little bit of money. But why even bother? Why even bother sending stores 4 or 5? Like, what is the point? You're actually going to upset more people than those few people that got them. There are these other controllers, USB controllers that go with the systems. Those were even harder to find. GameStop stores would get one, and if they were lucky enough to hit the shelf due to lack of pre-orders, or, say an employee at the store, bought it before it even went out, even if they were even lucky enough to get on the shelf, there was like one controller. So they would send many, many less controllers than the actual systems themselves. It was just a nightmare. That Friday they came out, I was working, and I got probably 150 to 200 calls about them because everyone was just not finding them. Walmart's, Toys R Us, online, whatever, just not finding them. I believe I probably talked about this in the last Nintendo episode. Obviously, reselling was going nuts. People were, who were lucky enough to find them, were instantly putting them on eBay or on Facebook yard sale sites. Not just they retailed for $60, so not just for $100 or $150, which is enough of a groaner. Trust me on this, enough of a groaner. But like $200, $300, $400, $1,000, $2,000, $2,500, just amounts that are just absurd, just beyond absurd and beyond ridiculous. And honestly, if you looked on the eBay, there were some people that were paying, a couple $100 for them. Not so much into the thousands range, but a couple $100 for what essentially is a mini plug-and-play system. That's another point I want to get to with these NES Minis really quick. People in general did not get a good grasp of what they actually were. Essentially, what a lot of people thought they were, if they didn't do great research in it, was that they were Retron systems, essentially. Systems that had pre-built games, everyone knew about that, but they also thought that they took the cartridges. I know this because several people would call and they say, do you have the Mini-NES? I'd say no, and then they'd say, oh, okay, well, do you have other systems that play Nintendo games? And I would go, you mean the cartridges? And they go, yeah, something else that takes the cartridges. And, every time I'd be like, well, if you would have bought the Mini-NES, it doesn't take cartridges. It just has those built-in games. It's more of like a novelty kind of thing. And honestly, that surprised a lot of people. A lot of people were like, oh, really? So, I won't go on about this Mini-NES. It was an absolute disaster. Any fact that you can give me or any line of reasoning, I'm just going to shoot down when it comes to it. If you would say, oh, Nintendo didn't know it would be popular, absolute malarkey. It was huge on social media. People were going nuts. If I can follow our Facebook, and when we make a small announcement, if I can see that people are excited and that it's getting shared and whatever, and I can see that, then Nintendo can see that millions of people were sharing this, millions of people were commenting. You could go to any poster and be like, I want one, I want one, I want one, I want one, everyone, because it was a good idea. Heck, I might have even got one for myself. So that's BS. If your excuse would be, oh, they didn't have enough time to make them, I call BS again. The videos were out during the summer. They had plenty of time. It is just, if you've ever actually seen one and held in your hands, it's a small system. It's a small plug-and-play system that does HDMI. I cannot possibly see that this would be something that they would be so far behind on making that it would be ridiculous. So there's no excuse. There's no line of reasoning. You come down to either 2 points, and this is going to be said for all of our other points today. There's 2 lines of reasoning when you look at what Nintendo did. Either they are purposefully not making enough to, just create this like frenzy that when they are available, they go crazy, a la the Amiibos from a couple years ago, or they're just dumb. There is no other way for me to possibly look at this. I always use the Cartman Land reference. Essentially, long story short, in a South Park episode, Cartman buys a amusement park, and it was his plan to always just have one to himself. And he was forced to let in like a couple people a day to offset just the small amount of costs. And people were going nuts. They wanted to be one of the 2 people in there, so they would just line for days just to be able to get in there because they couldn't get in there. And that's how I look at Nintendo. Ever since the Wii came out and called lightning in a bottle, Nintendo thinks all their products are Cartman Land. And we're not going to give it to them, but then, right near Christmas time, maybe we'll get it out and people will go crazy. I don't understand what the logic is for this, like from an economic standpoint, from like a sales standpoint. This would be different if I would look dumb if Nintendo every single quarter came out and said, here are our profits. They're record high. We're doing great. That is not the case. They are not doing great. They are not doing great financially. I'm not saying they're going to close down or anything, but it's not like the Cube era, the 64 era, or whatever. You released a couple, hundreds of thousands or millions of those systems, they can't cost that much to make, honestly. Like I said, there's not much to them. At $60 each, you make that money back. You make, like, there's no possible way you could convince me that, like, selling these for $60 is somehow a loss. I mean, you got a little bit of the, I'm sure the royalty fees for some of the games and everything, but absolutely no way that they're not making money on this. So I don't get it. The NES Mini is the big example, but there's a couple more we're going to get into in a little bit. I don't understand the reasoning. I don't, Apple sometimes, when a new iPhone or whatever comes out, will be hard to get, but then pretty quickly, after those first couple weeks, they're easy to get again. Nintendo doesn't do that. Like, Amiibos for the longest time, it would be like the first couple weeks, they're hard to find. Okay, well, then eventually they're everywhere. No, like, eventually they were, like, nowhere, and then out of nowhere, like, a year later, when no one cared anymore and everyone was fed up, all of a sudden every store had a ton of reprints of Amiibos. Yeah, you missed your boat there. I can understand if something catches lightning in a bottle and it's hard to find and you're like, okay, make some more, get them out there. It'll take a couple weeks, it'll take a month, whatever, but they go at this such a crazy way. I will never understand it. I will never understand why they didn't get these out there. I will never understand why they didn't think it would be big. End of rant for the mini NESs. It was, I take that one personally because it was so difficult to explain to every customer. Like I said, 150, 200 calls the first day, 20 to 30 calls each day, from then for like the first week that, and not to, place the blame, but it literally is their fault of us saying, we tried, we had several hundred on order, we had the pre-orders in, nobody has them because it is Nintendo's fault. I'm sorry, we'll do what we can. But you know what? I've been talking to, we really like our distributors. We talk to them almost every day, and they have no idea. They have what's called possibly like an expectancy report or something like that, where a company will send it over and say, here's roughly when you can expect something to get in, so you can tell your customers. It is N/A, not available for everything Nintendo. Do they realize that it is Christmas time? Like, I just do not get it, how you can send these huge, our distributor has 4 major, huge, double football field size, distribution centers. They go throughout the entire country. They're probably one of the top 3 to 5, distributors of video games that aren't, that don't go straight through, straight to the publisher. So why are they getting none? What is happening? Enough of that. There are a couple more similar things I want to get into. Now, Pokemon Sun and Moon came out, and like I said, that was a very positive thing. People were liking it. As long as you already had a 3DS, you were good to go. And the reason I say already had a 3DS, 2DSs, 3DSs, and new 3DSs are also impossible to get nowadays. Now, I understand, it's Christmas season. Like, when we go to our distributors, before Black Friday, I try to over-order a little bit. So if I'm like, we could use a couple PS4s, I might go, yeah, well, let's triple it, because then on December 15th when we need more, they might be out and it's understandable. This isn't the case. This is the case where, like our distributor has an N/A on when to expect 2DSs and 3DSs and new 3DSs. They have no idea when they are getting hardware. To paraphrase, but almost quote my main guy I talked to, our distributor, I have no Nintendo hardware to sell. Nothing. No Wii U's, no 2DS's, no 3DS's, nothing. Not a single thing at a nationwide distributor. So now what you have going on is places, even huge places like Amazon.com, do not have any 2DSs or 3DSs or new 3DSs available to purchase. Nothing. 2DSs are brand new for $80 right now, which I think is a wonderful deal. But what you're seeing only used available and people asking, and how can I blame them? It's simple economics, supply and demand, asking, $85, $90 for the used ones because they don't exist new anywhere. The simple fact that 2DSs and 3DSs and all this stuff are unavailable makes it very difficult for us. I've had, I get 5 to 10 emails or messages or, even more phone calls a day asking like, dude, I'm looking for 3DSs. I need one for, my son, whatever. And it's like, I don't know. You might get lucky and we might get one traded in, a couple traded in, but I can't order any. It's not a matter of money. It's not a matter of I don't want to. It's not a matter of I forgot. It's like I literally cannot order them. Even if Nintendo came out and was like, due to demand, 2DSs are now $100 each. You know what? People would buy them and I'd buy them in for the store. They used to be $100 a couple years ago, but they just are unavailable. Think about it this way. Sun and Moon just came out. A lot of people decide to get both the Pokemon games. So that's $40 each, that's $80. Now imagine if you're going into it, and trust me, there are a lot of people that picked up 3DSs. I know because we sold out of all of our used 3DSs and we had a ton. There are a lot of people when the new Pokemon games come out that you get a system. You go, oh, the system's that? Okay, I'll take both games kind of thing. Think about this. 2DS, $80. Both Pokemon's $80. You could get a brand new system and 2 brand new Pokemon games for $160, which honestly, in my opinion, is not bad at all. You can find them, maybe the 2DSs at the time were used for $60, so maybe even as cheap as, $140. That's an awesome deal. And, say you only got one of the Pokemon games, you get a brand new system that can play all the 3DS games, and the brand new Pokemon game for like $120. That's awesome. But guess what? It's not a thing. It's not possible because they don't have these 3DSs out. They knew, like I said, I give them credit. Pokemon is readily available. We're able to get it pretty much whenever we want. We ordered way more than we thought. It's selling well, but at the same time, systems aren't available. And how can they not know that how can they not see a spike when new good Pokemon games came out in the systems selling? How can they not see that? How can they know that they're coming out with this Pokemon game in the middle of November and there's no systems available? What are they thinking? I mean, I have people that are like, I tell them the God's honest truth. I have no idea if we're going to get an 8. I have no idea. I can't promise by Christmas. We have a ton of games for it, but I can't promise on the systems. Our hands are tied. And I have a lot of people saying like, okay, honestly, I might just get the games. And then if it's as hard as you're saying it and it continues to be as hard as you're saying it and they're unavailable, then I'll just give my kid the games for Christmas and say, hey, Santa will bring the system, when the elves, are finished making it. That would paraphrase someone who I was talking to about it. I mean, it's absurd. It's nuts. And this is like all these handheld systems. It's ridiculous. They came out for Black Friday, $100 brand new 3DS. Sounds like a great idea, right? Of course it does. It's a brand new 3DS for $100. Of course it's impossible to find. Like, again, people call all day, whatever, looking for it. It's a great deal. It's like they made so few. It's not some special edition, fancy schmancy Black Friday thing. I get it. Once in a while, you'll be like, hey, we're releasing something very limited, whatever. It's the same price, but it's a green Mario Party edition. Cool. This is just your standard 3DS. It looks pretty cool and everything, but it was like instantly unavailable. A 3DS brand new for $100, they would be rolling in it right now if they could just get those out there. So, like I said, it's the same thing as the Mini-NES. Well, we have one more topic to get to real quick. So, again, you're going to see this. You're going to see people asking for this over the holiday season, 2DSs, 3DSs, new 3DSs, and they don't exist. And I don't get it. And I don't understand their Cartman Land philosophy. Like, people can't buy the Pokemon games if they don't have a 3DS. And if you're looking at Nintendo's standpoint, they want to sell new. They don't want to have a store like us sell used. But if used is the only thing that's possible, so we'll do our best to get them in, and we'll sell them instead of the new ones. That goes from having somewhat of a chance for Nintendo making money on their new systems and stuff to a 0 chance, because it doesn't exist. Speaking of not existing, I think that was a great segue right there. The Nintendo WiiU. Now, recently, and very quietly, Nintendo has discontinued making the Wii U. This makes sense from, someone who pays attention to the to the market and everything. The Switch has been getting a lot of... The Nintendo Switch, by the way, is the name of the new system. It used to be called the NX, and now it's Switch. It's kind of a hybrid between like a handheld and a console. It looks kind of neat, but there's not much information on it. So it makes sense that they're discontinuing making the Wii U, honestly, but they did it so quietly, without much fanfare, that again, it's not as bad as the 3DS or the Mini-NES, but people asked, do you have any Wii U's? I don't remember the last time I saw a used one, because people are holding on to them. I'm pretty certain about this because the new Zelda game comes out in February, so they go, I've had this system for 2 or 3 years now, and I've enjoyed it when it has games, but it doesn't have many games. Well, now Zelda's finally coming out, so I'm gonna hold on to it for the next couple of months. I'm gonna play Zelda and then I'll sell it. I really feel like that's why you're not seeing a lot of used, Wii U's out there, because people are like, I finally see the light at the end of the tunnel. February is when they say Zelda's coming out. I'm gonna play it. I bought the system for Zelda. Many people have said that, so I'm gonna play it. Now again, when people are asking about it, oh, Zelda's coming out. They do that Nintendo Selects, which again is a good idea. $20 brand new Wii U games. Do you have any systems? No, because we haven't seen any used ones in a while, because new ones don't exist. They do not exist. My distributor hasn't seen any in a while. I understand that they are discontinued. I'm sure they have an overstock of them made somewhere. They're not getting them out there. They at no point ever price dropped the Wii U, and I do not understand it. If they would have price dropped it last year, when they knew internally they were making the Switch and that it was relatively close to coming out, they could have brought out those systems brand new for $200, put a nice game with it. They normally have bundles, but say put Mario Kart with it, like a physical copy of Mario Kart would be awesome. Digital is acceptable. Brand new $200. It would cause stores to lower their price on the used ones. It would make used ones like $150. Very, in the grand scheme of video game stuff, affordable. You have a $150 used Wii U. You have a bunch of brand new, good $20 games. They could have done that. Now they've discontinued the Wii U, and they have never once dropped the price. I can't figure it out. I can't figure out that they're still sitting at $300 new. Again, go look on Amazon right now. I'm certain, I didn't do the research beforehand, but I'm certain that if they have them listed new, that they're going to be above the normal $300 price point of the MSRP. I'm sure they're like $350 or $400 because they stopped making them. They're not available. It's Christmas time. Why couldn't they continue making them through like November and December? Why did they have to stop in like October and early November? Like, how could you find a worse time to just stop making a system? People ask for it. I mean, and I don't blame them at all. If people ask for it and I go, oh, we have it brand new and it's $300, they go, huh, really? Right, because the slim PS4 is out now. It's sitting between $250 and $300 depending on the sale they have going on. Xbox One, the slim model's $250, $300 brand new depending on what's going on. And then you have the Wii U, which has been out just about as long, has way less games. It's a less powerful system, and it's brand new for $300. And that was a reason for a while I didn't carry many new ones, because it was like, dude, it is $300 brand new. It is like, even at $250, I would have been like, yeah, no, I'll keep a couple in stock. It's reasonable to tell people it's brand new for $250, but like $300, it's just out of the range. Even more so, Paper Mario came out last month. A game for a system that not a lot of people, are currently getting a ton of games for and are GameStar for. Comes out, it's a pretty decent game, but it's still brand new for $60. They couldn't even knock it down a little for a system that is discontinued. Zelda's going to come out, and I understand there's R&D, and I understand all that's included and stuff, but they're going to come out. It's still going to be $60, even if it comes out at the exact same time as the Switch, and it's ridiculous. Speaking very quickly about the Switch, it's going to be limited. I'll make another projection, and in March or April or May or whenever the system comes out, I can make another, Nintendo. I don't want to say hate Nintendo lamenting, because I like Nintendo. I want them to do good. Lamenting podcast. The Switch is going to be tough to find. It's going to be more tough to find than an average system. That it's just going to be annoying. It's going to be weird. It's going to be hard to find. I like the name Switch already better than the Wii U. At least it's like, it tells you what it does. Like, it switches between handheld and not handheld. That's a good start. Wii U, again, we talked about this before. Terrible name. Just people didn't know what it did. Switch, you got the right stuff going there. It's just, if they keep doing what they're doing now with all this stuff, why even bring it out? Why bring it out if it's unavailable? Why bring it out if it doesn't have a lot of games? Why bring it out? I will say that Nintendo, And we're pretty much done with the entire rant right here. I will say there's one thing Nintendo can do, in my opinion, and it would be a tough pill to swallow. And honestly, it would make some of my earlier rants sting less, because there would be a grand, scheme in all of this. If Nintendo comes out with the Switch, and we've heard a lot of rumors that it is a cartridge-based thing, which I'm not all against. Discs and Blu-rays are like very, very powerful nowadays, but like if you look at Vita cartridges, like these tiny little things were very powerful. So it comes out in its cartridges. If they can somehow do it where the 3DS is not necessarily discontinued, but somehow, some way, the Switch has the ability to both play the Switch games and also the 3DS games, because it's technically a handheld. And what they're saying, or what they'll do, is the 3DS doesn't exist anymore, or maybe only the 2DS, because it's the the economy model. But you can play your 3DS games on the Switch, obviously, even if it's just as a handheld, even if you can't put it together and put it on the TV like that. That would be awesome. That would bring Nintendo back so much. The simple fact that right now they're spread so thin. They make more first-party games than any other company out there, but they have a quarter or half of them working on Wii U titles. They have a quarter or half of them working on 3DS titles. Bam, you bring them all together. All of your great minds at Nintendo making these games are making games for one system that I'm not necessarily saying Switch games can play on 2DS, and I know there would be no way to do this like super easy, but if you could bring them together and have them kind of like work all together and be like, these are our Switch games, they play on the Switch, and say if 3DS still technically exists, it plays on the Switch. You don't have to worry about your 3DS. You have this cool thing that can do both. Or, like I said, I would be okay if they discontinued the 3DS and 2DS completely if you could somehow play them all on it. Like, don't worry about your 3DS. Don't worry about your 2DS. You got the Switch now. It's awesome. It's, cheap, brand new, $200, whatever. And it's powerful. Again, this is just conjecture. I'm just thinking about it. When I think about the Switch, I guess that is my pipe dream where I go, wow, Nintendo would really do well if they did this. I'm worried, obviously. I don't think it's going to happen, but it would make more sense. Again, there is no excuse for not having these systems out, especially the cheap 2DS around holiday time. But everything would make a lot more sense if they said what I said about the Switch. I doubt it's going to happen. So listen, thank you once again for listening. I don't particularly enjoy making these because I still, will always love like Nintendo exclusives, the most overall, although it's, they're getting a little tired, some of the franchises. They're still like just so fun. Like, you have Paper Mario, and it's like not a perfect game, but it's just so like it has charm and it has a Nintendo-ness to it. I want them to do good, but when you see stuff like this, and when my job is literally to deal with Nintendo's mistakes every day, it gets very, very tough with that. So, as always, comment below with any questions or comments. We're glad to hear from you. If you disagree with me, if you agree with me, if you have any stories about finding the Mini-NES, or if you're currently looking for any of this stuff, or heck, if it's a year from now and I was proven wrong in some way, let us know below. And as always, thanks for listening.